All right, today we're going to talk about date and time functions, how to manipulate date and time and display different pieces out of a date and time value. And so the main function that we're going to use, and this is important because as you create your calendar, you're going to have to determine what day of the week the first of the month falls on. So you're going to have to do some calculations, some math. I know it's terrible stuff. So you can go to the PHP site, php.net/date, and it will get you to this documentation page, which is pretty good. And this is the main function that you can do just a lot with. There's just so much you can do with this one single function. And it's called date. And we pass it a format string. And to read these, to understand how these are written, this documentation, anything in square brackets like this is considered an optional argument. That means you don't have to pass it to your date function when you try to do something. And so it tells down here, timestamp is optional and defaults to the value of time. So time by itself gives you the current time. Let's go look at time. And it says it returns the current time measured in seconds since the Unix epoch. And I've talked about that in other classes. That's midnight, January 1st, 1970. That's the New Year, 0 a.m. on midnight on January 1st, 1970. So they did that because they had to have a number of time they could count seconds from. And the problem with a lot of implementations are that the epoch time ends in its current form in 2036 or 2037, I think. At that point, it will roll over again because the size of their integer, and I don't remember if it's 60, I think it's 32 bits, that will roll over at that point. So we'll go back to 0. So the next big problem, instead of the Y2K problem, is the Y2036 or 2037 problem. Yeah, so they're starting to change it now. They've got time. They could get ahead of that. But so anyway, time gives you the current number of seconds. So let's just do that. Let's just echo out the time function and see what we get. And go to my page. Let me get rid of some of this stuff so I don't have to deal with it. And so I get this number of seconds. This is the number of seconds since epoch. And they have different functions in most languages that take that number and give you an actual date. You know, they convert it down into years and months and days and seconds and hours and minutes, etc. So time is an important part. So the date function takes a time stamp, which is the number of seconds since epoch, and gives you back some formatted date. So so it returns a string. This is what it returns. This is what you have to pass it, and this is optionally we pass it a comma and the timestamp, some number of seconds here. So the time format is a string containing all of these special characters, and this is the same in a lot of languages. C has something like this. Ruby has strf times, very similar to that. C has that, C#. They all have ways of formatting a date time object into a string. So it's very common. So all of this stuff we can do with this date time. So let's just play with a few of them. And the month, all the day of the month with, so this should be 01 to 31. So today is the 28th. If I call that with the current time, if I say echo using the date timestamp of a little d, then I'm going to get, what do you think I'm going to get printed out? All right, so I just get a D. Why did I did it wrong, right? So what did I do wrong? I didn't call the date function, did I? I did. I didn't call the date function. All right, so there's a very simple thing. I need to actually call the date with the format string. I see I did that on purpose, just to show you. There we go. So the problem is that, let's echo a break tag so I can see what I've got. And I should say 28. So it is the 28th day of January. So I get a number 28. That works pretty good, right? So let's play around with some more. I can also get the textual representation of what day it is. So I could put a capital D. So let's put a capital D ahead of that with a space and see what I get back. I get Monday the 28th. Cool, huh? The day of the month without leading zeros. Maybe you want this as just a number, so, and you don't want 0, 1, you want just a 1, so you'd use a J instead of a D. A full text representation of the day a week instead of just mon and sun. You'd get Sunday and Monday. That would be a lowercase l. So all of these values are very useful. So let's say I want to get the textual representation of a month. That would be a capital F. So I'm going to put an F in front of that. And I get January, Monday, the 28th. Right? So I can move these around however I want, and maybe that looks better at the end. And let's put a comma in here because I think it might look better. And let's upload it. And you see that the format now, let's see if I can get them both on the screen, matches. The comma comes through because it's not a special character. The spaces come through because that's not a special character. Everything else is considered a special character. All right, so it interprets those commands and how to print out the actual date string that you want. All right, so we can manipulate the heck out of that and do anything we want based on these values. We have the year, 2-digit and a 4-digit year. 2-digit year bad. We don't do that anymore. AM or PM, depending on whether we're AM or PM. Here, whoa. 24-hour format, so military time, the hours in military time. Minutes with leading zeros, so I can put the minutes out here. Microseconds, I can even get the microseconds. So let's put that in here just for fun. And reload it. Yeah, it is. I'm always getting zeros, so not very good. Yeah, it notes that, right? It doesn't support it, which is weird. So we've got time zone. You can figure out what time zone you're on. And what time zone would that print out? Let's print out the E here. All right, so let's run that. Oops. All right, so I get America, Los Angeles. So why is it America, Los Angeles? All right, whose time zone? The server's time zone. The server is the computer that's actually executing this code. So this has nothing to do with the client. The client could be in Germany, and they're always going to get a time zone here, in this case, of America. So because it's running on the server that's actually down in Los Angeles. It's down in Brea is where this particular server is. All right?
You'd actually have to use some PHP to tell it to run client side.
Yeah, right. And how would we get client side formatting, client-side date and time.
I'm not sure, but there's some cool records up to date.
Yeah. A time zone locator, okay.
No, scroll up.
The
Up a little more. It's the identifier.
but that's again the time of the server.
No. Up one. See time zone identifier.
Where
Yeah, no,
Right there.
he does not.
again, that's
He
still
does not identify client side. It does where the server.
that's still the server. Okay, if I put an E here, that's what I had, and it gets. I'm happen to be in this time zone, so it's hard to show you that, but I'm in the same time zone as the server. But how would I get time zone from, or the date and time of the user himself? JavaScript, right? That's the only way that I can actually determine what time zone the person is in, because JavaScript would get the client date and time of the browser where it's being run at, the computer where it's being executed. So.
The time one I like on there is R, where it gives you a pre-formatted one now.
Yep, here's an R. This is a RFC 2822 format.
It's a
So I could do just an R here.
generic one that pretty much. The only downside is it's kind of over-informative sometimes.
Right, it's got a lot of stuff. Monday the 28th, January 2013 at 10:47:04, which is pretty close. And this is, we're 8 hours in the negative. We're Greenwich Mean Time minus 8 is what that means. We're 8 hours negative from Greenwich Mean Time. So Greenwich in London, in the UK, is 8 hours ahead of us. That's what that means. All right? So, given all this information, we need to try to figure out the first day of the week, for instance. Well, we're not on the first day of the week, so there are other methods that I need to access. Any questions on this one before we move on? The date, time. You could get anything you want out of a date time here. It's pretty useful. It gives you lots of formatting down here. And if you look at the examples, they use this method called make time. So make time will take an object, well, let's look at it. It takes a bunch of parameters, and notice how every single one of them is optional. But notice how we have all of these, they're embedded arrays, if you think of these square brackets as arrays. What this means is this one is inside of this other one. So I can't have just the year in a make time method. If I just put one number in here, which number is it going to take? Hours, right? So hours has got to be here first. If I have hours, then I can also add minutes. But I can't put seconds unless I've had both minutes and hours defined. Okay? So, for instance, if I can create a date, let's call it now equals date, time. And let's just echo out the make time. Let's call it, no, let's do it this way. Now midnight is going to be some number that I can take and use from my, now is, yes, I do. Let's see, switching languages back to Ruby again. There we go. That's better. So I can take that make time and create a time by, and if we look at some of the parameters down here, I can add some things or not. So if I can set 0 and then take the current day and time that I have. So let's start by just printing out, let's just do this just to show you what this will be like. I want to look at a specific day. Let's just do this for now. I want to show you what the make time does. Make time, if I pass in, this is the first one, this is going to be what? Hours, minutes, seconds, month, day, year. So that says December 32nd. All right, let's see what happens. And let's say month, day, year, see what happens here. It comes out, see, this is what got printed out, January 1st, 1998. But I wanted midnight, December 32nd. So it knows enough that there are 31 days in December. So it added 1 to that. That means really I'm into 1998. So it incremented everything for me automatically and gave me the real time of January 1st, 1998. All right, does that make sense? Let's do it with the R so you can see all of the date. And let's put a break here. Let's put a break.
Wow, that auto increment is going to make this really easy.
Right? Should.
Well,
So here's the...
you want to be harder than Ruby, but with auto incrementing,
Yeah,
a lot less
Nice.
statements.
isn't that nice? So that's one nice thing about PHP. It does a lot of those calculations for us. So given that, I can create a date and then format it and get data out of that date again. I can say what day of the week was January 1st, 1998? Well, it was a Thursday, and that's printing out a Thursday. So I can, it's funny that it's not printing it right. I can then use some date formats here just to get out the day of the week it is. And that would be like 4 or 5, some number there. So a combination of make time and date are all that I need to figure out someday in the future or someday in the past. So there's a trick here, and I think it's in the documentation. Let's see if we can find it, to find the first day of the week. Here's an example that tells you how to get the last day of the month. So the last day of any month can be expressed as the 0th day of the next month. So if I put 0 as the day here, that's going to give me the last day of the previous month. Isn't that weird? So it knows what the time calculations are here. So if I want to know, let's say, what the 1st of January came out to be.
Okay, so this is using literal numbers, not
Right.
actual counting.
Right. So if I want to know what day, make an object that has the 1st of January, what would I put in my make time here?
You'd be the 0, no, 1st of January would be the 32nd day of December. It's 0 day.
Well, I want the
You said 1st of January, so it would be 32nd.
yeah, let's see. Back here, we're finding the last day of the month. So let's say, what do I want to? How do I find out what day of the week the last day of the month of January falls?
That would be day 0 of February.
Right. So we go to the 0th day of February, and the current date here is 2013. And now I have Thursday the 31st, January 2013 at midnight. And if I look at my date calendar here, it does in fact fall on a Thursday. So that this object here, this make time, actually just returns an epoch number of seconds, a time object, and I can use that to get more data out of it. If I just were to echo this, I wanted to show you what that comes out to be. If I echo out make time,
Okay, so the date is what formats it properly.
right. This should be just a number of seconds. All right, so I get, again, this is weird.
The appending is what
It's the appending is not working right. I'm not sure why. I have to think about that.
you didn't say.
Well, whatever. 800. So this is the number of seconds since epoch for this date object. So I can use that number, and I can add seconds to it if I wanted to. I could do anything. It's just a number. And but through this make time object, I'm creating an instance in time, And then using the date function, I'm getting pieces of information out of that instance in time. All right? So that's how I find the last day of the month. How do you think I might find the first day of the month?
The 32nd.
What do you mean without just saying 1-1?
Yeah, so I would say 1, right? So if I want to, instead of 0, I'm going to say 1 of January 1st, 2013. That should print out, let's,
I thought
no.
you were some convoluted
No, no. So it should print out a Tuesday here. It came on a Tuesday.
Born on a Monday.
So now it's Tuesday. So that time object I created an instance in time of the 1st of January 2013. I find now that that falls on a Tuesday, and I can use some more date functions to find out what day of week that is. All right? So how can I tell what day of the week based on a number that the 1st of January falls? Well, let's go back to our date time function. Go back to our date. And we want to find the number of the week. No, that's the week number. We want to find this one here, right? There you go. So you were right. 0, it starts at 0. 0 is Sunday. And Tuesday would be what then? 2. Okay. So let's see if I put a W in my function here, what I get back out. I should get just a number 2. All right. So I know that the first day of January fell on the second day of the week. So I can use that number perhaps in a counter to print out some blank cells. That's a big hint, right?
That's not a lot of the work you did in Ruby.
Right? We did the same kind of concept in Ruby, though.
Well, it was the same concept, but in Ruby you had a lot more if-then-else statements.
Yeah, probably.
To tell
Probably.
what the current day was and what the days of the week were. In this one, the date time doesn't appear together before you. All you
Yeah.
have to do is format.
Yep. So how would I print out, and I hate to do this, but I almost always give the first line of code here. How would I print out a bunch of table cells, blank cells, until I get to the first day of the week? What kind of a structure would I use?
You'd set up
All right, I need a loop.
do a loop for the number of weeks and a loop for the number of days.
All right, so I'm going to print out my table. I got to spell table right. Isn't that funny that the auto completion? If I do a Dave, it auto completes a Dave. Isn't that sweet? So I spelled table wrong, so it auto completed table wrong for me. Isn't that nice? So I have my opening table and a closing table. And then I need to have, let's do it up here. Let's do an open row. I need an open row and a closing row. I'm not doing the whole thing for you. Oh, a quote. Yeah. Not a dash. All right. So now I want to loop through and print out some number of cells that are blank up to the point where I'm going to start printing out my calendar. So how many cells do I do?
Well, it's always 5 a month.
Don't you need a variable
It's
that
not-
determines what that date function returns?
Yes. So I might store this in a variable. So I can say first day is going to be the date of a make time of this current month of January. Okay, so this first day is going to contain what type of variable?
Number.
A number, which happens to be 2 in this case, right?
So what I did was for the number of rows, it's always 5 on a calendar, down to 7 day weeks.
I'm not going to do the whole thing. I'm going to print you one row here. So we're going to do this. The first row is a special case. Okay, so I could do a while, first day. Less than, I don't know.
You want to do a while your counter is less than 7.
All right, so let's set up a counter variable. Count equals 0.
So while your counter is less than 7, and then you count each time, and you ask if else, if today's counter is equal to first day. And then if it's equal to first day, you put a day, and then each subsequent day you have it. You check if it's greater than or equal to first day. Sorry.
All right, let's do this first. While my count is less than first day, do something. And let's start. This is how I program. I do a little bit at a time. I'm going to open my cell. And I need to put, well, that's one thing. I'm going to put a non-breaking space in here so it doesn't collapse. And I need some third part of my while loop is to increment my counter.
Well, you just do count plus plus. Is that what you're supposed to do for the...
Yeah, either way.
Okay.
All right, so that's going to print out how many cells? Well, let's see.
Sunday.
Let's put a border on this so I can see it. A border equals 1. All right, so I printed out 2 cells. The first one you would think of as Sunday. The second one you'd think of as Monday. The third one now is going to be the first day of the week, which is Tuesday. So I printed out enough to fill in the first part of my calendar. So if I look here, I have these first 2 days of the month of January are blank, and then I'm going to start printing out table cells with numbers in them until I get to the end of the week. All right, any questions on that? So the next cell that I print after this while loop is going to be a cell with a number. So I'm just going to do that. I would do it differently if I was going to code this, but let's echo out a TD with a number 1 in it. And see what that looks like. So now I've got a 1. So this is Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. So the first day of the week is going to be a Tuesday. So that's perfect. See how the calendar works down here? A little hard to see. And I would continue that on until I got to the end of the week, which how many days are in a week?
7.
Okay. Then I would start a new row and print out numbers until I got to the end of the week. Start a new row, etc., until I got to the end of the month. How do I know that I got to the end of the month? How do I know how many days of the month there are? I showed you, right? There was a make time to show you the last day of the month, and so that gives you a number that I can count up to. I want to stop when I get to that point. And if I use this, the PHP is going to automatically calculate the leap years for me in February. So sometimes it's going to have 29, sometimes it's going to have 28. So the make time does that all for me. It's really nice in that respect. Yeah. Okay, any questions on that? Anybody done? Ah, yes. All right. We'll do that next. We'll do part of that. Gosh. Any other questions? So I've given you part of the code. That's a special case. The first row is going to be a special case. The last row is going to be a special case. The middle rows could be all done in a while loop. Same as Rails, same as how you did it in Rails and Ruby. So I don't want to show any more. I'll do too much of your code for you. That's why you have 2 weeks to do it. All right, any questions on the date and time functions or the make time functions? Those are the two things you'll need to do. Make an instance in time and get data from that instance in time. Or we could use the current date. So that's one thing we didn't do, is what is the current date and time here? Well, I can use the current year, for instance. How would I might get the current year instead of hard coding 2013? I could. I could just say date. Give me the year, and the date format for the year was a lowercase.
I thought lowercase gave you a 0.
It probably does. It probably gives you a 2-day. It's an uppercase for a 4-digit year. All right, so I could use that, and we're going to get the same structure. I still get a 2013, but it now made it variable. If I change my clock time, which I'm not sure I'll be able to do here,
Using that method, you could just put a date in each of them and say, single digit there, single digit,
so let's set my clock to this.
etc.
Okay, so now I'm February 4th. Well, see, what is going to happen? Absolutely nothing, because where does this, right, it runs on the server. So I can't do that. That's just stupid.
I was wondering why you were trying to.
Yeah, that does nothing. I'm not going to be able to change that at all.
Only in Ruby you can change that. You didn't have to work on
What is today? The 28th?
Sugar, stuff.
Yes. All right. Well, I have to actually change it. It'll probably set itself eventually. Who knows? The school's 28th. Okay. So I would use actual, I would try to use the current date and time here as much as possible, but then I can set some of these values. So I could use this is date of what? Might be date of, for the day of the month. How do I get the day of the month from? Okay, it was day of the month without leading zeros. That's probably good. J. Put a little J there. So that's going to be identical. This should be the same. Yep, doesn't change. Monday the 20th. Well, it did because I changed it on the wrong thing. I want this one to be actually what? I want it to be the first day of the month. So that didn't work, right? That was a hard-coded thing, right? But if I'm in February, what would I change to make it February? I would change this part. This is the month, and I need the month number. So I look at the date time. The month is without leading zeros is a little n. So I might use date of little n. All right, so I can use those kind of things to create the current, whatever the current month is. So in your program, when I load up your calendar in the browser, it should show the current month first, the current month that you're on first. Then your next and previous buttons should go backwards and forwards in time from that current month. So if I look at this in February now, which I will, it should show February. If I look at it in March, it should show March for me. So you can't hard code that. That's got to be based on the current date and time of the server. All right, any questions on that? All right, I think that's enough for today. Tomorrow, I'll talk a little bit about the next and previous buttons, but it's basically the same thing. You're going to use make times and dates to figure out a prior month versus the next month. All right? That's good enough.